Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be diving into an intense lower body workout focusing on strengthening and sculpting those hips and glutes. This routine is going to be excellent for increasing the strength and power within the hips and glutes, as well as improving the shape, roundness, and firmness of your glutes or butt muscles. I'm going to be showing you some of the absolute best exercises you can do for your hips and glutes, all in one routine. Get ready for the burn and the pump. Check with a health professional first before starting this or any other exercise routine. Let's start out with a couple dynamic stretches with a hip and glute focus. We'll start with the downward dog with a scorpion kick. From downward dog, lift one leg toward the sky, bend the knee, and bring that leg back towards the opposite side of your body and reach it down towards the ground on the opposite side. Rotating out and extending back through the hip, squeezing the glute, contracting the glute, and opening up the hip flexor on the front of the hip. Return to the downward dog and then switch sides. Repeat for 2 to 3 reps on each leg. You can pause and hold at this point here at the top, or you can drop down into this crab position. You're going to use the glute even more by landing in that crab position and then pushing back off again. Now downward dog with the twisted lunge. From downward dog, step 1 foot forward outside of the hands into a long lunge position. Twist your torso and reach the opposite or inside arm up towards the sky, rotating through your torso and looking towards the top hand. Then return to downward dog and switch sides. Repeat for 2 to 3 reps on each side. Downward dog with twisted lunge not only strengthens and stretches your hips, glutes, and hamstrings, it also targets the obliques and improves spinal mobility. It's a great exercise for enhancing overall flexibility, mobility, and even balance. Now that we've got those two major hip and glute dynamic stretches done, we can move on to the hip and glute focused lower body exercises. The first exercise is quadruped straight-legged hip extension, also known as a glute kick. Start on your hands and knees with your back flat. Straighten one leg. Lift that same leg straight up and back until you feel a contraction in your glute or butt muscles, squeezing your glutes at the top. Then lower back down under control. This exercise targets your glutes and helps improve hip stability. Make sure to keep your core engaged. Keep your hips stationary and parallel to the ground so one hip does not dip or raise above the height of the other. Here I'm going to do 2 sets of 12 reps on each side. Next is the one-legged Romanian deadlift, also referred to as the one-legged RDL for short. The one-legged Romanian deadlift is another excellent foundational functional hip and glute specific training movement that involves a ton of other muscles and fitness abilities like flexibility, balance, and coordination. You can use weights with this exercise, but it's quite challenging and effective just simply using your own body weight. To perform the one-legged RDL, place one foot down firmly, grounding through that bracing leg. Hinge forward at the hip, keeping your back flat and the trailing leg straight back so it's in line or nearly in line with your body. Your back leg is raising at the same time that you bend forward. Push through your standing leg to return to the starting position. The one-legged Romanian deadlift targets the glutes, hamstrings, and lower back. It also helps stretch the hamstrings and improve balance and coordination. There's a few different variations of the one-legged Romanian deadlift. In this variation, I'm crossing and touching the opposite hand towards the opposite foot, so the fingertips are going to touch about a few inches in front of the opposite foot. You can normally do 2 to 3 sets, 10 to 12 reps. For this session, we're doing 2 sets of 10. Next up is the kneeling leg extension or knee extension. This is the only exercise without a glute focus, but I want to throw it in because I want to have somewhat of a balanced routine, and this is one of my favorite lower body weight exercises. You will have to keep your core and your glutes tight while you're doing this move in order to do it effectively. You're simply going to kneel down on the ground, keep your core really tight, allow your knees to bend as far back as you feel comfortable. In the beginning, you want to start out with a really short bend in a really short range because it's going to have a really hard pull at the back end. And if your core is not strong or your core is not ready for it, you may tip back or you may fall backwards. Just feel it out at first, start really shallow, and then gradually over time, try to go deeper and deeper. This exercise is primarily going to work the quads and the core, but a lot of other muscles have to engage and work to stabilize to do it effectively. It's going to be also really good for knee strength and knee mobility. Make sure your core stays tight and your spine neutral so your upper body is in line with your thighs. This kneeling leg extension is significantly harder than a lot of the other lower body bodyweight exercises. It depends how you do it, but if you try to go deep, it's going to be really pretty intense. Since I'm going deeper and it's a lot more intense, I usually do 3 to 4 sets of 4 to 6 reps. If that regular version looks way too tough, you can start with this slightly easier version first. This is manageable for most people. If you have bad knees, then you're going to want to be careful. And you can also just try shortening the range like I'm doing here. Now let's move on to the hip thrust. Lean your upper back against the side of a bench or other elevated, sturdy object. You can place a barbell or a weight across your hips, but we're going to just do this with the body weight for today. You can also do one leg at a time, but again, we're just going to use 2 legs. This is like the beginner version, but it's also a nice finisher. And walk your feet out in front so your knees are bent at about 90 degrees. You're almost in like a crab position. Plant your feet flat on the ground, hip width apart. Push down through your heels and then drive up through your hips. Push your hips up towards the sky, squeezing your glutes at the top. Lower yourself down under control. You don't want to touch your butt down to the ground. You're going to leave a few inches at the bottom. This exercise is really good at building strength and power in the glutes and hamstrings. It's also going to help strengthen your lower back, and if you hold your belly in like you should be, it'll also engage the core. This exercise can help your squats, your deadlifts, and a lot of other athletic movements like running and jumping. Make sure to keep your chin tucked and your core engaged throughout the movement. And for this exercise in this routine, I'm doing 3 sets of 12 reps. Focusing on a nice full range of motion, keeping the spine neutral so your back is in line with your thighs at the top. You have a nice tabletop position and concentrating on squeezing and contracting those glutes at the end range. And the last exercise I have for today, which is a great finisher, is step-ups. Stand in front of a bench or a step box. Step onto the bench with 1 foot and then drive through your heel to lift your body up and then lower back down under control. This exercise is going to work your quads, your glutes, your hamstrings while also improving balance and stability. So it's also going to help you with a lot of other athletic movements. Keep your chest up and your core engaged throughout the movement, and again, 10 to 12 reps, 2 to 3 sets on this. And I'm doing 3 sets of 10 reps today in this routine. And there you have it: glute kicks, one-legged Romanian deadlifts, kneeling leg extensions, hip thrusts, and step-ups. A really great hip and glute focused lower body routine with some of the absolute best hip and glute exercises you can possibly do. Not to mention 2 hip and glute focused dynamic stretches, downward dog with scorpion kick, and downward dog with twisted lunge. If you incorporate these exercises into your routine, let me know how that goes in the comments below. Thanks for joining me today. Like the video, subscribe if you want to see more fitness tips and tutorials like this, and I'll see you next time.